Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. The Australian Energy Regulator regulates the wholesale electricity and gas markets in Australia, is correct?
Yes, Senator, that's correct.
Right. The average electricity bill is $1,524 a year, GST included. That was stated by the ACCC?
Yes.
Right. Cost of electricity since 2008 to 2016, over an 8-year period, cost of electricity went up by 47%, but consumers decreased usage to manage.
That's right.
That's correct?
Yeah.
We actually have 19 retailers, but the big three vertically integrated, AGL, Origin and Energy Australia, control 60% of the market.
Broadly right, Senator, yes.
Right. Over those 8 years, the percentage of the bill, there's actually about 4 sectors that stipulates the bill, the cost of the bill. So
Yep.
it'll be the network,
Yep.
the wholesale, the green scheme,
Yep.
and the retail.
That's right.
Right. The network, 49% of the bill. That's up 40% in the 8 years.
Yep.
The wholesale, 21%, up 17% over the 8 years. The green scheme, 8%, and you indicated subsidies went up 16%. Renewables, and the retail is 22%. That's up 26%.
Correct, Senator.
The elephant in the room here basically is the network, isn't it? It's gone up 40%.
Yep.
Right? Networks are actually the, as you said, the AER regulates the price. So for networks to actually, correct me if I'm wrong, I might have wrong information, networks are actually paid a dividend on their infrastructure that they put in.
Their rate of return.
Certainly, yes, Senator. There is a rate of return that the network businesses are paid on their assets. Yes.
That they put in, which has been as high as 9.7%. At present, it's around about average of 6.5%.
Warwick Anderson, General Manager, Network Finance and Reporting. Senator, the most recent rate of returns are a little below 6%, yes?
Well, the ones that I've got here, Transgrid 6.75%, Ausgrid 6.68%, Endeavour Energy 6.68%, Powerlink 7.4%, which is Queensland. So Transgrid is New South Wales. So what you have regulated, and you're talking about why are we having such high electricity prices, is because, and I'll put it to you, the Australian Energy Regulator have actually put up a high return for these networks to get 9.7% at the time, now it's 6.5%, a return on their money, which they're now putting all this infrastructure in. So what's happening is that consumers are actually paying them high dividends on the infrastructure they're putting in, far more than what they would get by having their money in the bank. Is that correct?
So, Senator, there's a bit of a history here. So what happened is during the late 2000s, we had the global financial crisis, and what that meant is that the businesses faced much higher costs in attracting capital into their businesses. And so more recently, what we have seen is interest rates have come off, and so the rates of return that these businesses are being compensated have also come off. But what's happening here is that these businesses need to put assets in the ground to provide a safe, reliable electricity system. And so in order to do so, that requires capital investment, and to attract that capital, the businesses need to offer their investors a capital rate of return which is competitive with other sectors.
I think that if a lot of businesses out there thought they'd get 9.7% return on their money, they're doing quite well. Most
Senator,
people can't get that.
If I could just jump
Yep.
in, because the ACCC's report said quite clearly that a big part of the problem and a big part of why we've got 40% network increases is because the rules that were set in place around 2006, 2007 by governments when the AER was set up I personally remember all this very clearly. You had a combination of inappropriate rules that the AER had to work under, which meant rates of return were higher than the AER would have set if they'd have been unconstrained. It meant expenditure would have been less if the AER had been unconstrained. So you had the rules were the problem that were set by governments when the AER was formed. And secondly, you had some inappropriate, excessive reliability standards set by state governments, which meant that the companies could build according to those higher reliability standards. The interplay of the two made things extremely difficult for my colleagues on my left. So in addition to all the points Warwick's making, in my view, and we put this very strongly in our report, the cause of much of this network rise was those inappropriate rules and those inappropriate reliability standards set around 2005, 2006, 2007. That is a big cause of why Australians are paying too much for electricity, Senator.
So you don't put it down to the fact, and you're speaking about the infrastructure. Can I just tell you that America's network infrastructure is estimated to be at $100 billion. That's for 320 million people. Ours infrastructure here is estimated to be worth $75 billion for 24 million people. So putting in infrastructure, they've put in an awful lot of infrastructure, as you're saying. It's a very good business. And then also on top of this, Queensland and also South Australia, since 2012, have got the highest electricity costs for the eastern states, for Australia. Under this also, and this is where I'm talking about infrastructure that's been put in and the dividends paid. In Queensland, just correct me if wrong, they've the infrastructure is owned by the Queensland government, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct, right.
Yes.
So,
Right, and also New South Wales.
well, New South Wales has just sold half of theirs, so they own half of it and the other half.
But Queensland owns it.
Yeah.
The dividends paid to Queensland State Government for 2016-17 was $1.466 billion. That is in infrastructure costs. So it is the consumer that is paying for this infrastructure cost of what you've regulated, that they actually pay was 9.7, as high as that, down to now for Queensland, Powerlink, 7.4%. Can I ask...
So, Senator, I'm convinced personally, as the ACCC, having watched this market and having done our report, that the vast bulk of that 40% contribution came from those inappropriate rules and came from those excess reliability standards. So I believe that's where the blame and the problem lies.
Do you have a stipulation with these companies how much infrastructure they put in and how much they can put in for claims to get dividends paid to them?
So what happens in the process is the businesses come to us with a proposal on the amount of capital expenditure they need to operate their networks and provide the service. We review those capital proposals and ultimately make a decision on the total amount of capital expenditure that the business can invest in its network. The businesses are then free to invest more or less depending on how circumstances travel, but as Mr Sims has talked about, the rules that we have operated under in determining those capital requirements have limited our capacity to restrict the total amount of capital the businesses have invested.
If these businesses don't like your determinations, they can appeal against it, can't they?
Up until the Parliament's now just removed that. They had an ability to do a merits review. That's now been removed in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been through the Senate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the past 10 years, how many of your department's decisions have been appealed?
It's around about just over 50%.
And how many have you lost?
I don't have that number.
We can certainly provide you some more details on questions on notice there. We can provide you in writing, Senator, the exact numbers. In many of the appeals, there are multiple issues under appeal, And what has sometimes happened is that the AER has been successful on some of those, and then the businesses have been successful in their challenges. In our most recent appeals, which the decisions came down on Tuesday of last week, the AER was successful in supporting all of its determination, and the businesses' appeals failed on all counts.
Just one last question to you, Mr Sims. Would you actually, you said your main determination is affordability for the Australian people, because they are struggling and they cannot afford to switch a light on. Will you look at this with what the percentage of what these companies are getting paid for the infrastructure that they are putting in?
We are certainly
rising costs.
we're looking at those network issues, yes, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Chair.
Senator.